Hi, it's Vish. Thanks for listening to Creative Control. If you'd like to support the show financially by making a monthly flexible donation to keep this podcast going, please visit patreon.com/Creative Control today.
Creative Control with Vish Khanna.
Lee Kern is a talented comedy writer, filmmaker, and music fan based in London, England. With a rich history as a satirist whose work is akin to very hilarious social science studies, Kern has worked on 2 Sacha Baron Cohen projects, the uproarious 2018 television series Who is America, and as a screenwriter and associate producer for the feature-length Borat subsequent movie film, which begins streaming on Amazon Prime on October 23rd, 2020. Lee and I connected recently for a conversation about his work in the realms of comedy and pranksterism, celebrity pretense, delusions of grandeur, and looking angry evil in the face. Loving Tom Green, Nirvana, Pavement, and David Berman's Silver Jews, future plans, and more. A part of the Entertainment One network with the support of listeners like you who follow and subscribe to this podcast and spread the word about it and make flexible monthly donations at patreon.com/Creative Control and Massey Hall's concert film series live at masseyhall.com, where you can stream dozens of 30-minute films for free, including performances by past podcast guests like Andy Schaaf. Plus in-kind support from Pizza Trocadero, The Bookshelf, and Planet Bean Coffee in Guelph, and Granddad's Donuts in Hamilton. This is the 574th episode of Creative Control, featuring the funny and daring Lee Kern, with your host, me, Vish Khanna. Hi, Lee. How's it going?
Very, very average, thank you.
Average? Oh, no.
Yeah, no, average is good these days. You know, in the world of crap, if you can be average, you're excellent.
That's likely true. That is likely true. First of all, where in the world are you?
I'm in northwest London, UK.
Now, is that where you're from?
Yeah, so I've grown up in a sort of a little town, well, not a town, a suburb called Edgware. Pretty much lived in my old life. I've been to other places, but I quite like it around here. It's like it is a shithole, but where isn't a shithole these days, you know? And so if you're going to live in a shithole, you may as well have one where you kind of know your way around the shit, and it's a bit more familiar. So yeah. I'm happy.
Yeah. Well,
I'm average and I'm happy.
You're average and you're happy. On the whole, from your perspective, how are things going there in England as they may relate to the way things are going around the world? I'm calling you from Edmonton, Alberta in Canada. We have a pandemic here. I don't know if you have the pandemic. I'm pretty sure you do. There's social unrest. There's lots of issues in the world. From your vantage point in London, how are things going in that regard?
I mean, for me personally, I don't mind it. Like, because I don't really like the things I like in life. I just like pottering about or maybe going out on my bike. So that hasn't really changed much. And also I don't have to sort of get on the tube into town for meetings anymore. So I don't mind doing that. Saves a lot of time. But in terms of the general vibe, I think it's probably pretty much like everywhere, where it's just a massively divided society where we've got no shared traction on what is reality or truth anymore. And, you know, you have the rise of conspiracism dovetailed with the rise of people who are bombarded with such opposing views that they just give up and they don't know what to believe and they lose faith in society. And so we've got a situation now with all the COVID stuff. Like, you know, British people are, you know, we're belligerent and leery and sort of people don't care. So, you know, no one's really wearing their masks or following the rules properly. You know, you've got just people congregating. I just think people have just had enough, even if they sort of accept the sensible medical narrative, understanding that there's a virus and there isn't a vaccine yet.
Yeah.
They kind of don't care anymore. People, there's this attitude, I want to, who cares? I mean, without being boring, just talking about COVID and stuff, it's just general, just the logic leaps people make. So if you're, let's put aside the conspiracy theorists who do make ground getting their narratives entering the ether, and even if they make people think, oh, well, maybe better be cautious. What if the conspiracy theorists are right? The conspiracy theorists have kind of done their job in casting doubt in people's minds, and so they've taken them out of the game.
Yeah, people have kind of given up on believing in anything. It seems like believing that they should wear the mask, that they need to follow the protocols. They've gone sort of, maybe, I don't know if you were suggesting this, but it seems like we've all gone past the point of accepting that this is happening to a weird, mass destructive denial where, I don't care about anybody else. I just want to go to the pub. I just want to do this. I don't care. Because it doesn't seem like...
Totally. And I think people are assisted by really bad, really flawed pieces of logic. So, for example, there might be a big narrative saying, well, look, more people will die of cancer, than this COVID. So why aren't we just focusing on sorting that out? But the logic doesn't work, because I couldn't sit in a room with a cancer patient and catch cancer from them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Just from sharing the space.
Yeah.
Cancer is not a virus that's transmitted like that. So whereas COVID is, and there isn't a vaccine yet. So it doesn't, do you know what I mean? It doesn't work, the comparison.
No.
Or you'll just have the big narrative of people saying, oh, well, it's only survival rate's 99%. That's great. 1 in 100 is pretty significant. And if you're like a population of 60 million, like 1%, that's a big number of people. And it feels like a pretty brutal or ignorant sort of, you just haven't conceptualized that attitude to think, oh, well, fuck it. 1% is a huge fucking amount of people to die.
Well, okay. So this is why one of the reasons I wanted your perspective on this is, and I need you to sort of vocationally identify yourself here. You're a comedian. I know you as a comedy writer. Are you, would you say, and I think, and forgive me if this is wrong, something of a satirist, something of a prankster even? Would you agree with these distinctions?
No, not necessarily. No, I wouldn't. Not in a hostile way. I don't disagree with you and hate you now.
Do you hate me a little? Just a little bit?
No, not at all. Not at all. Because
okay.
It's really... So it's what I'm about to say now will sound really kind of misanthropic and callous, but it's not. It's really optimistic and joyful. I couldn't give a fuck about my career or art or culture anymore. I used to, but now I literally don't care. I literally just want to make a living. And so I will, whatever opportunity, whatever I can do to make my living, I'll just follow where the money is now. And that doesn't mean I'm a sellout. I make stuff with integrity and dignity and pride and quality. But it just so happens that there have been opportunities for me to make a living doing some of this pranky kind of stuff, or writing some things for Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yeah.
And so that's what I've done.
But in your own work, don't you do a bit of that? Like, I was watching some clips of you in some of your work, and there's the thing where you've tried to convince celebrities they've been cloned. There's paparazzi pranks. It feels like you have a little bit of that within you. I understand what you're saying. You've got a little bit.
I've got it within me.
Yeah.
I've got it within me. Like, it's a fun, easy comedic medium to work in. I find it very easy to write those sort of things, to conceive like events and silly happenings,
right,
where just stupid dramas manifest. And so it's very easy. But it came about, my career arc, it wasn't always in comedy, even though comedy is always what I wanted to do, and I've my soul feels inclined towards comedy. But the first, it's basically, I sent some, there's a channel in the UK called Channel 4, and I just sent some stuff I'd written to a guy who worked at years ago when I was about 19 or something, and he liked it, but he didn't want to do anything with it. But I sort of hustled a meeting out of it, so I went in and met him, And during the course of the conversation, I just mentioned, it turned out he's from the same town as me, Edgware. And I mentioned how there was the guy who used to walk around in Edgware wearing only his underpants, going through bins. There was like the crazy underpants man.
Okay.
And there were all these urban myths and legends about him. And I just said, I've always wanted to make a documentary about him. And then he just put me in touch there and then with someone who worked in the documentary department. And they gave me £1,000 there and then to go and make a little doc. And so I bought myself a little camera and I literally just made this self-funded, lo-fi, rough and ready documentary. And so my entry into show business came via documentary. They were the first people that gave me a space to sort of explore my voice, cut my teeth. So I made these kind of homespun, ramshackle, lo-fi documentaries with a comedic edge, but also a kind of sort of simmering, sentimental quality as well. But then bit by bit, I'd try and veer towards doing comedy stuff. So I ended up doing some voice for a cartoon called Modern Toss. And then how I got into doing pranky stuff, I'd never grown up wanting to do prank. I always wanted to do scripted stuff, which is what I am doing now. I can talk about that later. But when Prince William got engaged to Kate Middleton and they were going to get married, there was going to be the big royal wedding and there was kind of royal wedding fever. And I just pitched an idea to the channel saying I could do a prank show where I pose as someone who works for Buckingham Palace and I'm organising the wedding and we can get these celebs down and just sort of fuck with them a bit, see what absurd things they'll do just in order to be part of the royal wedding. So we literally had, just as an example, like some celebs believing that they were going to help introduce the courses of the banquet, of the meal. And so we had we had one of them like dressing up as a prawn cocktail salad, dressing up as this big prawn, thinking that is, and recording an announcement to the heads of state and, royalty, just saying, ladies and gentlemen, heads of states, governments, princes, please welcome your starter prawn cocktail. And they'd be saying this whilst looking like this little prawn on a bed of lettuce. And so it was quite, but people would buy into it because they were so desperate to be part of the proceedings. Like we had some of them, they came in and they were trained up thinking they were being trained up in how to act around royalty. And they literally some of them signed a disclaimer saying that they were happy to die and they would sacrifice their life in order to kind of take a bullet for the Queen if anything went down. And they signed it. And one of them signed it whilst being a bit weepy because she felt the gravitas of it, of like laying down her life and the fear of it. And it's like, well, don't sign it. Don't give your life for this. Do you know what I mean? Some old lady with a crown. What's wrong with you?
So this is where I'm coming from. You have a perspective on human behavior and psychology as a comedian, and in your experience with celebrities and other people, that I wonder if that sort of mentally prepares you for the way people are behaving right now during a pandemic. Like you might, you know what I mean? Like you might, I would figure you're not surprised by the idiocy that we are seeing as a result of this crisis. Is that fair?
No, but just generally, that's the story of, humanity. Like we've got these brains that it's this most powerful organ we have, and it enables us to achieve like transcendent, incredible things. But it can so easily be turned against us and used against us. I mean, this isn't a revelation. It's people can be made to believe anything. I often found when doing the pranks that actually some of them, bizarrely, some of the people who were most resistant to being tricked were actually some of the more stupid people. Now, I'm not saying it's an overall rule, but anecdotally, I found some people who were just more not that bright. You'd tell them something absurd, like I'd say, "Oh, you've been cloned, right? We've made a clone of you. Do you want to feed it? Do you want to feed it some soup, right?"
Right.
People who are more stupid might be more inclined to just immediately reject it and go, whatever, and just not buy it. But a more intelligent, inquisitive mind
the brain looks for patterns. It looks to connect dots. It looks to rationalize and reason and make sense of the world. And so if I said to you, oh yeah, we've made a clone of you, we got some of your DNA when you gave a medical test on a TV show, you're given these bits of information. They're trying to piece it together and think, oh, hang on, how did they get my DNA? How did they get a clone of me? Is that possible? And so they start filling in, they start weaving the tapestry themselves and making the logic patches themselves. So, but yeah, people can be like, having done a show. Look, so I'm, obviously I'm Jewish, and obviously, with the Holocaust thing, it's a human knowledge now that you can get people to do anything, horrific things, and believe that they're virtuous whilst doing it. Like the most awful crimes generally done by people think that they're doing a good thing. Do you know what I mean? That someone who thinks that, like someone committing a genocide, can't really do it thinking, fucking hell, this is a bit out of order, isn't it? What a fucking bastard I am.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They're going to be doing it thinking, oh, I'm doing, this is good for society. Maybe it's a bit ugly, but overall it's moral because it's for the benefit of my society and civilization. So people are like capable of awful things. And so then when I got immersed in the nitty gritty, let's say convincing people they've been cloned, it just became apparent to me that people can believe anything. And imagine like I'm managing to get someone to believe they've been cloned and meet what they think is a clone themselves. And you'll manage to get them to believe that just in an hour of their company.
I mean,
you're talking
just
about... Just to find a point, find a point and say, imagine you can achieve these things within just an hour of someone's company.
Yeah.
Imagine all of us, you, me, everyone, the layers and layers and sediment of information and narratives we can be fed for our entire lifetime, how much, you know what I mean? We're not as autonomous and free thinking as we'd like to believe. It's like, do you see what I'm getting at? If you want
Absolutely.
Me to do it in an hour,
no, I do. And I think of the clips of yours that I've seen. And I think, as you know, I was a huge fan of Who is America. I just thought that was a stunning series. And it wasn't really, on the one hand, I'm not surprised by human nature because I try to pay attention to human nature and figure it out as much as I can. It's one of the reasons I do this show is I talk to people and I try to figure these things out. But what we're seeing when comedians and producers like yourself make these things are kind of the finest, the highlights of probably a couple of days of trying to get at that stuff. Are you ever in a position where the jig is up and there's like the person realizes what you're doing, that they've been made a fool of, and then they get so angry that you're in some physical peril or there's going to be an argument? How often does that occur in your line of work? Where you're
I can talk about like I had my own show I had on Channel 4 called Kern's Celebrity Bedlam.
Yeah.
So that's where I did High Science. And I remember there was actually only one. I mean, we had pulled off some ridiculous things that we never got rumbled. Like the very last stunt we did on the show, and my execs made us do it as the last stunt because no one believed we'd be able to pull it off. And that was a stunt where I was going to convince someone that I was an actual dog, and have them believe I was a dog and stroking my head and kind of and they said, you won't do it, and we fucking pulled it off. Like and what I loved about that was the trickery to do in order to pull stuff off. So in that was so we hired out this dog kennel for the day, this dog pound for strays and what have you, and in one of the cages we just built a false wall at the back of it with a hole in it, so I would kneel down and stick my head through that hole, and then we put in some literally a sort of prop costume dog snout stuck on some hairy ears and a bit of black around my eyes, and then put literally a fluffy toy dog's body beneath it, so I was like standing like a dog. And we had someone coming in thinking I was real, and I'm literally licking their hand. But that was actually the most difficult stunt for me to do. There was an actress, a brilliant performer called Sophie Black, right?
Yeah.
So she was saying, oh yeah, and here's a dog, we're going to actually put him down tomorrow. And they were feeling sorry for me. And but it was really difficult for me. I was scared to make eye contact with them because I thought if they see my eyes they'll see my human soul, you know, and the intelligence behind the eyes. And so anyway, that was the most difficult one. Anyway, my point was, we convinced people crazy things. The only stunts where we did one stunt where it was, I took over a catwalk at London Fashion Week, like a proper catwalk.
Yeah, yeah.
And I posed as some fashion designer, some maverick. And I had this range of clothing that the celebs believed were made out of human leather. And
right.
so they were these disgusting, grisly, Silence of the Lambs style, stitched together bits of flesh and skin, like horrible. It was like, you know, these coats with like a tit sewn onto it, an ear. We had like a poncho with a dick and balls.
Yeah,
and
that's yeah.
pubes. So all this horrible stuff. Now, and they people buy into it and believe it. It was only at the end when one of them, what would have happened is one of them just phoned their agent and goes, "Oh yeah, it was good filming. Yeah, I wore clothes made of human leather." One of them had like a penis sewn onto the back of it, and then I imagine the agent would have said, "Sorry, you did what?" And then it would have been, you know what I mean? But then I had to hide in a cupboard. I didn't want to hide in a cupboard, but my producers made me hide in the cupboard because I think the celeb there was desperate to come and find me.
Exact revenge of some kind. Yeah. So you are, you know, when you make people look stupid, you're in a weird position. Like, I've done a couple of things like this, not like this, of course, but
what have you done?
I did a thing. I had a segment once on a little TV pilot I was working on. I had a segment. It was like a streeter thing called, I called it Nice Racism. And basically I got people to, I would say, hey, we're doing a thing to try to highlight, you know, how, you know, certain people are great at stuff. And so I would say, like, fill in the blank. African Americans are the best at, and then they would say whatever. So, and then I went through all the races, and they would make these crazy generalizations like, oh, swimming. And I'd be like, what? Yeah, oh yeah, the Chinese are the best at swimming. And so I called it Nice Racism, because that's a nice thing to say about a race, really, that they're really great.
Stereotype.
Yeah, exactly. So I've done little things like that. Not many. I mean, I don't have a lot of, I live vicariously through people like you and you know, all my comedic heroes. Because
what you've said, that thing you did, you know, that stuff's interesting. Like, just, you know, it's a social study and experiment.
Exactly.
On, like, attitudes and things. So there's an idea I've never done. And like, I once did an idea where you get a focus group and there's all people just in the same room. And then they're left with different envelopes or different tasks to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought, well, one of the tasks would be they open it up and there's just all these different photos. There's a different photo of different people of different ethnicities. You know, of a black person, an Indian person, a white person, Chinese, all these different faces. And the challenge and the task would simply just say, put these photos in order. And that's all it would say. and then you would just watch the conversation of where they steer it, how they try and interpret what that means and what they do. I think, you know, that would be interesting.
Well, I like the social studies aspect of this kind of comedy, because you really do learn a lot about people. But I didn't have this with my thing, but in retrospect, I wondered, should I feel bad about this? Should I feel bad about making these people, you know, bringing out this true self of theirs on camera? Because we were filmed all of it. And
I don't think it's 100% true. Like if I'm being, it's not 100% true self, because obviously, you know, we're constructing, people are funneled. Like when I make my show,
true.
Obviously you're leading them into a certain territory and area.
Yeah.
It depends. I mean, your one doesn't sound particularly, it's not particularly like venomous, and you know, you're sufficiently giving them rope to hang themselves.
Yeah, that was the whole premise. Yeah, it was like a streeter thing. It was strangers, like on Toronto streets. You know, I would go and they'd see a guy with a microphone and a camera, and I'd say, I just have a couple of questions, and they would answer them. And yes, it wasn't venomous per se. It wasn't meant to make them look bad. It was meant to be like, this is how people think. Maybe
for me, what was difficult is I'm just being perfectly honest. Like when I made this show, so I'm doing this stuff, imagine for a year and filming, doing these things. And yeah, I'll just be perfectly honest, because you quickly dehumanize, well, I did, and I'm sure everyone else does, quickly dehumanize the subjects I'm doing the stuff on, because I've I've got all this pressure that I need to get material today to make this show. There's this whole team here. There's thousands of pounds being spent on this. I need to make this work. I need to make a good show. And so it literally, I'll be honest, it'd be as callous as, all right, what dick are we filming with today? What are we doing with them? And you literally, so when I first started doing it, it was horrible because like the first shoot, I had all the symptoms of being a liar. You know, you're looking into someone's eyes, you feel your heart rising, you feel anxious and sweaty, and you feel like they can see into your soul, and like, you know, almost, you know, like in Crime and Punishment where he's walking around with this secret, you feel like they can see into you. But over time, and this is it's obviously a negative thing, over time, you kind of lose that, and you just like, I'd spend a year. So I haven't done any prank stuff myself since.
Yeah.
Because I don't really genuinely, I don't fancy spending a year of my life looking into people's eyes and lying being really good at it.
Right. But let me put it to you this way. Like, you talked about some of the celebrities you've duped and some of the other kinds of people you've duped. And on some level, those people aren't pure evil. They're just maybe vapid and silly, and celebrity in general. I mean, I do feel like overarchingly, I like when people make fun of celebrities because if they're just celebrities for the sake of being celebrities and aren't particularly talented or what have you, or, you know, that's interesting and funny and playful on some level. But you have had numerous experiences, I'm sure, where you're actually staring and lying into the face of pure evil, particularly with some of the other stuff you've done with Sacha Baron Cohen and elsewhere. How does that work? Like, when you're like, yes, we got this fucker. Like, I don't like these people. I'm sure there's part of you, like these anti-Semites, these racists. Is that satisfying on some level, more so than maybe the celebrity duping and the other regular people duping?
Well, there's two things. One, I can't massively talk about the process of the Sasha stuff.
Sure.
Talk about that.
Sure. Yeah.
But in terms of what is just in the public domain, like the content, you know, your audience may have seen or can see. For example, there was a stunt with a guy called Jason Spencer, who was some I think in Alabama kind of lawmaker or something in America.
Yeah.
We had there was a stunt with a character called Iran Murad, who was this sort of ex-Mossad Special Forces anti-terrorist training.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And you had this guy literally. So I came up with this idea where you'd convince this guy that the way to defeat ISIS is not with guns, and you tell them that what is the biggest fear of a jihadist terrorist? It's being seen as being gay, because if they're gay, they won't go to heaven.
Right.
And so the way to strike fear into the eyes of a terrorist running at you with a gun is to pull your trousers down and get your arse out and run at them with your bare buttocks, trying to touch them. Because if you touch them with your buttocks, that means in their heads they'll think, oh, I'm gay now, I'm not going to go to heaven. And so they'll run away and drop their weapon. Now, and so we had this guy chasing around, literally got his arse out, chasing around Iran Murad, trying to touch him with his bum, shouting, USA, USA, motherfucker, trying to touch him with his bare bum. And what makes me laugh about it, because it's like putting on a temporary mind patch on someone. Because if I was at ISIS and you started running at me with your bare bum, I'd just shoot you. You know what I mean? And it's like, it never occurred in this guy's head that he thought, oh yeah, I'm going to run at a man with a fucking AK-47 in my bare bum, and he's going to run away or drop his gun. He'd just shoot you. You know what I mean? But so in the heat of the moment, people go for stuff. But yes, look, of course, like you know, you could argue there's a social good in exposing people. Like, he was massively like racist as well. In the show. Yeah. So that there is a value there, and if someone's got a political job, there's a public interest in knowing the inner beliefs of a person. Do you know what I mean? That seems valid. Fair enough. I think you know, next time I make one of these shows, if I ever do make my own one, I think I would quite like to make sure there's a narrative within it saying, look, we might be laughing at these people, but none of us are immune. We're all easily manipulated. We can all be made to do shit, because this is like, it's just ingrained evolutionary stuff that can make this happen to any of us. Any of us could do evil things, you know, and that's why it's important to be vigilant. and maybe own it a bit, that we've all got, like, there's a, when you look at all the hyper attempt to present oneself as the most, like in the most extremities of the uber wokeness, where it's so extreme and it becomes like this Puritan sort of test, and it's impossible. Do you know what I mean? We're all vulnerable, we're all flawed.
But the other thing I will say is, in your work, what I do see also is a satire or criticism of the media, because you've got cameras and microphones, and these things to some people are temptresses. Oh, I would love to be, I don't care what you're asking me to do or say. You've got a camera. This is going to be on TV or the internet. Wow. Yeah. So there's that chasing of celebrity, I think, that's also, and the way the media is complicit in giving platforms to people like this. I feel like that's a huge part of your work as well, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, of course. Like, people, I'd be frank, I've got nothing to hide. Like, when I make my show, people will do it for a combination of reasons. They're doing it for their public profile, they're doing it to be on TV. Some people might get a small fee because they think they're taking part in a TV show. I mean, they are. It's just not the TV show that they thought it was.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And they're doing that. But one thing I just want to say as well, and actually it's given me a chance to talk about, I think, one of your fellow Canadians, but Tom Green.
Yes.
So, we always hear this big debate, punching up is okay, but you can't punch down and all the rest of it. Now, I think, there's some merit to that, but I don't actually, I don't think there's any rule, this is what you have to do in comedy, that's what you can't do, because that's just bollocks, without sounding like a, childish hippie. There should be no rules. And it's all about the tone and intent. So someone like Tom Green, he's just doing ordinary people in the street, old people. Yeah. Sometimes it might even be a crazy homeless guy, but it's not cruel. And if any, what he's actually satirizing, I'd say, is an even bigger and worthier topic of satirization than politics and politicians. It's just satirizing the nature of reality. Yeah. About just the satirizing the fact that we believe so seriously the worlds and lives we live, and take it all so seriously. And then you suddenly got this weirdo sliding on his back past someone performing Elvis whilst wearing a crash helmet. Or when you had Tom Green, I remember he always did this one, I think it was called, what was it called? Canterbury Tales, Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. And it was him walking down the streets at night, and he had this rope, he was wearing this dress, he had all this smeared sunblock on his face. And he had a rope with a load of goat heads tied to it, and he was just sort of terrorizing people. Now, what is that? Like, he's doing immersive street pranks. He's not satirizing politics. He's creating this an absurdist comedic poem. Yeah. That's which I always saw as Tom Green at his greatest, what these absurdist visual, like, comedy poems that just make you almost laugh at just life, everything. Existence is fucking ridiculous. Yeah. And so, the whole punch up, punch down is quite myopic in the sense that it thinks everything always has to be political and all the rest of it, but you can satirize just existence, and therefore anything's target. I don't know if any of that makes sense. I don't know if you're a fan of Tom Green or remember him.
No, of course. Yeah, I am. Yeah. And I was. And he was a big deal here. He used to have a public access sort of TV show in Ottawa that would get sort of spread. Or I got to see it here. I didn't live in Ottawa, but we got to see it on like the local cable access sort of thing. And then obviously, he blew up, and it was a big success story because he was so uncompromising. I believe, like, we've talked about comedy quite a bit, but I believe we have some musical connections. We have some mutual friends and mutual interests. You're a big music person?
Yeah. So I think, like, I've mentioned to you that a lot of my influences on it's quite weird, even though I work in comedy, my actual influences are either a kind of poetry, like writing. So I don't really watch much comedy. I used to watch quite a few British shows. I never really watched a great deal of stand-up, but my influence on my comedy writing just comes from poetry. That's what's taught me how to write. And then musically there's music I like that's been a real influence on my philosophies in terms of how I approach like work and my career, and I guess also aesthetically and opening up in my head what are valid and worthy areas for me to sort of comedically talk about. That seems all abstract what I've said, but I'm sure when we get down to the particulars, it will make sense what my airy waffle actually meant there. So, I mean, just give you an example, like, so this is my musical lineage. I grew up as a young kid thinking I didn't like music because I hated all the stuff that my friends in school liked. You know, when people like Michael Jackson or, you know, Nana Cherry or whatever was big at that time, I didn't like it. It didn't make me feel anything. And I just thought I was a freak. Thought, oh, I just don't like music. And then obviously, like a lot of kids of that age, then I sort of heard Nirvana, and they were the thing that literally landed at the right time.
Yeah.
Most beautiful age. And it sort of transformed me. And then I got into, I mean, at the time it was off the back of grunge. So it was like Nirvana, Soundgarden, and it was Smashing Pumpkins.
So it was, I assume part of it was the sound, but part of it was the revelation that some hidden world, you know, this world had been hidden from you and now it was exposed. And this is what I had. I don't know. How old were you when you heard Nirvana? I was like, I guess I would have been...
I was born in 78.
Yeah, so you're just a year behind, or I'm a year younger than, or older than you rather. So we were around the same age. And I remember feeling like I consumed a lot of music journalism, and that was a big thing when I discovered punk and underground music, and you know, things like Pavement and David Berman and all of, you know, Fugazi and Shellac and all those things. It was that, oh, this has been hidden from me. Like they didn't talk about this in Rolling Stone and Spin and all the stuff I just had easy access to in terms of music journalism. So part of it was I felt both exhilarated to discover this stuff, but I also felt like, hey, if they're lying to me about this, what else is everyone lying to me about? So it created both like, okay, I'm going to start exploring on my own. Like it did, I'm proud of that and happy about that impulse, but it was also the first seeds of mistrust. Like, wait a second. There's a whole world here. It
empowered and unnerved you in equal measure.
Yeah, and I had the same thing with comedy at that time too. Like Letterman was a big one for me, but his booking people and him seemed really keen to showcase the weird and wild and strange people that you wouldn't see anywhere else. So there's this, and Howard Stern for me was that guy as well, like a little bit, like just exposing you to things the rest of the world wouldn't tell you about. So is that part of it for you as well? Just that like explosion of information, if you will? It just feels so instant. It just felt so instantaneous. I mean, it literally is, you know, I'm not an original, but it's literally as instantaneous as the opening riff to Smells Like Teen Spirit. It's just literally there, and it just feels true and authentic, and it just slips right into your heart saying, okay, yeah, this is for real. It's just that unquantifiable, even though like art and music is subjective, there's got to be something going on where a sizable constituency of human beings collectively arrive at a conclusion saying, even though this music's subjective, that we like it, this just feels real. There's truth in this artist, in what they're communicating. Yeah. You know, it's just because like, I don't, you know, who knows if there's a science that could actually break down and understand why we see some music or paintings or art and think, yeah, this is the real deal. We can actually feel that's human for real. Well, again, and I feel like this informs comedy as well. Like I have a real radar for pretense and inauthentic sort of expression, and I don't that's the other, I think when I gravitate to the comedy of someone like yourself or the music of David Berman or someone, you know, who I feel is telling me something from a real place and a true place, and it's on me psychologically to think that what you or people like other people I admire are doing is oppositional to the forces of fakery, but there's probably some truth to that. Like I think we make things in relation to a little bit anyway, we make things because they are our true expression, but we also make things in sort of reaction to stuff we don't like or think is not good, if that makes sense. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. It's just, I mean, when I first started writing, the truth is like, it's almost like you become like an extremist. Like, it's like, I would write feeling, it's almost like I had to write for my life. Do you know what I mean? With all my guts and soul. Like it wasn't just like I had like I was writing for my life. Do you know what I mean? Almost like survival, almost, where it's like this is. Do you know what I mean? And you can just maybe tell. I don't know. Maybe it's just human desperation, not in a tragic desperation, but the desperate desire to communicate, just to say something true. You know what I mean? To say this is, you know, I don't know, who knows, but you can feel it.
It's an urgency, I would say. It's an urgency. You just feel like this is an immediate and true feeling. It's authentic, and I need to express it, as opposed to
So there's two. So let's take all the sort of more grungy bands like Mudhoney, or even like the punk bands like, you know, Minor Threat and Black Flag.
Yeah.
So they're influenced. In tandem with them again, I got into Pavement. Like, wow, the first song I ever heard was Unseen Power of the Picket Fence.
Oh, from the No Alternative compilation?
That's it. So that's how I came across Pavement. I didn't know, because none of my friends were on it. So I've heard this track, and that's the one that stood out. I think it had a couple of Chris Cornell tracks in it as well.
Did you probably, as a Nirvana fan, get that because there was the secret Nirvana song on it?
Which one? Maybe. Which one was on it? Was it Sappy?
It might have been. Yeah, it's a secret track on the CD. And I turned off my internet mostly, except for us talking right now, so I'm not going to look it up. But it's a secret song, and I feel like they did a really cool thing by Nirvana. Kern was really good at this. Kern was really good at being like, yes, I have this platform, but I'm going to use it to extol the virtues.
He did it with the Vaseline, did it with Daniel.
Yeah, but
Johnson with the T-shirt. He did it. I know he did some, that William Burroughs, he did some...
Yeah, the priest, they called him. That's right. They did a record. But he was really good at, like, how cool is it that it was a secret? Like Nirvana, huge band, and then all these young people like you and me clamoring for this CD to get this Nirvana song. And really what I think the impulse for Kurt was, beyond doing something to help, benefit people with AIDS.
But the secret tracks now, they're extinct. They've gone into extinction because they can't exist anymore.
CDs don't really matter anymore. That's true. But I'm just saying, like, that was a cool thing, because you got that CD because you might have heard a rumor that there was a Nirvana song on it, but then you exposed to Pavement, or I think Uncle Tupelo, like Jeff Tweedy from Wilco's band, I think was on there too. Like, I think that's kind of a cool thing that he did.
Well, no, it is cool. So what happened was, I heard that sound, like Unseen Power Picket Fence, and I just thought, shit, this band that I've not heard, this is fucking crazy, like what's going on in this song.
Yeah.
And this laconic singing style of almost somebody like literally can't be bothered to sing, but yet is totally singing and using his voice like an instrument. And then that weird collage bit at the end where it's almost like, what's going on here? It's like there's like an American Civil War
Asa
pastiche,
that's right.
And then there's like a dog barking, and what the hell's going on? And so literally off that I went off on a side journey away from my friends and all the music they have, and I just went out and bought Wowie Zowie. And so that was the first Pavement album I ever heard. And obviously, like most good complex textured art, you find that first few listens, your ear, you don't really understand, you don't feel, almost like I can't hear it. And it's like one of those magic eye pictures where eventually your eye grabs onto it. There's some bands I've always found where, because it's new, your ear then focuses and grips it, and when you suddenly get it, and just Wow Zow was just like, it was mind blowing for me. And I couldn't get any of my friends to get into it because it was almost like they couldn't understand the idea of music that wasn't heavy at that point.
I was the same, absolutely. I was trying to get people into Silver Jews and Pavement, my friends. They do now, they like it now. But there was something about my high school punk friends that couldn't get it. I would like, hey, let's watch, I taped it. Let's watch Pavement on Conan O'Brien doing stereo. And I'd make them all, I didn't make them, but I'm like, hey, and they'd like, all right, Vish. Like I was like a VHS YouTube guy. Like I basically was YouTube before there was YouTube. I would tape everything on TV and say, hey guys, come over and watch, these bands that were on. And so, for some reason they were a hard sell at the time. But it just spoke to me. I liked everything about it. And also go ahead. No, I was just going to say, within Malcolmus, I think a little bit of comedy. I think his delivery, his writing was funny. I appreciated that too.
Yeah, yes, there was comedy, which I'd never heard in song, but it wasn't like I'm writing a comedy song.
No, it wasn't a novelty song. Like even that Unseen Power of the Picket Fence, is a song about REM, who at the time were probably the biggest they'd ever been. And he's writing a song about their early days, about how the stuff that we didn't, the masses didn't know about was actually the cool REM. So they're like,
I always remember, when it's like, Range Life, where he's taking the piss out of the
Smashing Pumpkins, Stone Temple Pilots.
And I loved Smashing Pumpkins growing up, but like I could still laugh at them. I can't imagine Billy Corgan would have found it particularly amusing, but
he did not.
I dug it. He did not. And so what payment? And so then obviously I went out on a limb and I thought, oh, let me check out this album called The Natural Bridge by by the Silver Dukes.
Yeah.
And again, that was just utterly transformative. And then I, bought Starlight Walker, and basically just so what Pavement and David Berman stuff kind of did for me at this time. So I wasn't working in comedy yet at that time, but all this, it made me realize, oh shit, there's I can talk about my own landscape, like in the documentaries and stuff I write.
Yeah.
Like I can do suburban shit. I grew up in a suburb and I connected with these guys who want, as much as Kurt was sort of anti-showman sort of posturing, he clearly had the most incredible charisma and was a rock showman, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then you have these guys, Pavement, and they just look like fucking guys. Do you know what I mean? They just look like men.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Wearing their clothes and then going on a stage wearing their men clothes.
No pretense.
And performing.
Yeah.
No pretense. And that really resonated with me. And the stuff they were talking about, that suburban feel, I thought, oh yeah. And obviously David Berman with his, the focus on the small details and, the sort of wonder within the mundane, it sort of made me, connect saying, yeah, that's kind of what I want to do anyway. But I realized, it's valid. You are allowed to do that. Yeah. And it helped. So when I made these little documentaries, these authored little documentaries, there's kind of this almost simmering, like, they're looking for the glory, in the mundane. I remember at first, again, it probably sounds pretentious, but I remember I'd write these documentaries, but my secret goal in them was to try and find a sort of transcendent language for atheists. And so I'd be trying to, in my documentary, no one would know that, they'd just be watching them, but the way I would try and inject the simmering feeling was like, I want to create reverie just in a secular way, the beauty and wonder which is there and stuff. And that was, I guess, David Berman and probably more than Pavement, but yeah, it sort of helps saying, yeah, you can do that kind of shit. Was
the fact that sorry, this is maybe too personal, but was the fact that David called this project Silver Jews, was the fact that he was Jewish, did that resonate with you as well in a hopeful way? As you're a practicing Jew, I believe, as well. Yes,
I'm not practicing. Okay. No, but I'll do like Yom Kippur and stuff, and Pesach dinner, like on the festivals and things. I fast and that, but I'm not like, I don't wear a kippah or anything. I never felt that his stuff particularly rare, other than the name. It wasn't particularly
no, it's the name mostly, I would say. Yeah.
Oh, the name mostly. To be honest, I think it was like, even if they'd been called the Silver, egg shits, I would have gone and bought their album off the back of the Pavement connection anyway. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And but so then I made this film. I mentioned the film about the guy in his underpants who walked around Edgware.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I had £1,000. I bought a camera at the time. It would have been probably about $1,000 the camera costs. And so I'm doing it all lo-fi. Yeah. And they gave me permission to almost be lo-fi, like this ramshackle Pavement aesthetic.
Yeah.
Thought, I can fucking do this. And then that colliding with everything that I'd ingested from the ethos Nirvana would put forward, and the idea of Black Flag, where you just you're not waiting for permission to proceed in your creativity or career. Like, I've always found people have literally always waited for someone high up, a gatekeeper, to say, okay, yes, you may make a film.
Yeah.
I just went out and made them without waiting for permission, and that helped me get on. But what was I babbling about? Completely gone again.
You were talking about the documentary you made, and were you talking about the music maybe?
I wanted to end out, like, because I was editing it, and I've always loved editing stuff for music.
Yeah.
And I the ending of the film uses the I'm Gonna Love the Hell Out of You.
Yeah. Silver Juice song. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's on like just an EP or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a single, I believe. Yeah. Yeah.
On the single.
Yeah.
So I had to reach out. I think I got in touch. I emailed someone up. Who did it with them? Was it Domino or was it someone else?
The Drag City would have had. Yeah, sure.
Drag City.
Yeah.
Drag City.
Yeah.
And David Berman sort of wrote back saying, yeah, it's fine, you can use it. And I had no money to offer, and he said that's fine. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Is that your only interaction with him, or was that your only interaction with him?
No, I think I wrote to him to thank him, and he sent me a postcard back. And yeah, he's just sent a little post. I don't think I've got it anymore. Oh, and I think I met him once. No, I met him twice actually. I met him once at a gig in London. He played. So when they had him, and he was being supported by those crazy Israeli guys, Monotonics,
right?
Who were fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
You know, like he literally climbed up onto. He literally jumped off the. He did a John Wilkes Booth, like who tried to kill. Was that the guy that killed Abraham Lincoln?
It was the guy who shot Abraham Lincoln. Yes, yes.
Yeah, so like the guy from Monotonics literally climbed up into the rafters of the theatre and then just jumped off it like John Wilkes Booth.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but he just landed on people, so he was fine.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah.
So you interacted with David there, and
that was, I literally just sort of, I said hello. So it's like, it's difficult because I'm just a no one, and you don't want to like force yourself on people or act too over excited in their presence. There's retrospectively, I remember hearing him like in the years where he kind of disappeared. I just, part of me thinks, I could have, maybe I could have just written to him. Why would he have minded me saying, hey man, just wanted to say blah, blah, blah.
Well, that's that's why he reached out to me, I think, is that I had asked various mutual friends, like we'd spoken a couple of times before that, but I had just asked about him enough on this show and over emails to people that he caught wind of it, and he got my email and he reached out to me, and then we became, these pen pals, which is, I mean, that's a day I never forget, because he was just a huge influence and inspiration for me from when I was a teenager. So yeah, no, I love, and I think it was around maybe that time that you connected with me a little bit too. And I like that David for me is a perpetual gift giver. I feel like my love of him and his appreciation of me has connected me with people like you and other people. That's cool. And I really, I love him even more.
That's because I reached out to you after listening to the podcast, didn't I?
I think so. I mean, I noticed. Yeah, I noticed also on Twitter. I had written a nice thing about. I think I named "Who Is America" the best thing in comedy of the year for Exclaim magazine here in Canada. And then I noticed you followed me on Twitter, and I was like, "Who is Lee Kern?" And then I looked you up, and I was like, "Oh." I mean, I assume that might have been part of it too. I don't know, but I think you appreciated that. I think I'm putting words in your mouth. I gather you appreciated that I appreciated David, and I think you also maybe saw the fact that, I don't know if you read that or were aware that I wrote about Who Is America, but I wondered if you're like, oh, he got the show. He also got the show a little bit.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. A lot of appreciation all around.
Yeah, I feel like we're connected a little bit, and I feel like we have a lot of the same interest. And I mean, obviously, I hope after an hour of chatting, you feel that way a little bit.
Yeah, no, I'm done with you. I'm like, you're dead to me now. Do you know what I mean? It's over and done. But yeah, it's
I just like when culture brings people together. That's like part of why I do what I do. I like to, and I feel like maybe as much as some of the stuff you do is difficult for some, I think it's a nice showcase of humanity in another way, and I think it's galvanizing. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, well, thank you very much. But I think, I mean, the only reason, I know you're primarily a music podcast, and I know we've only touched upon the music, but I think, so your listeners, I can't give them this value of being some famous musician or what have you. They'll just think, well, who's this? Just some guy who's written, but maybe there's a small story in there about, in a very, very genuine way, the sort of cross-pollination and the inspiration and the spiritual flow between music feeding into other arts and creative people, where like all the music I've cited very briefly, truly has like empowered how I've gone about my career and just getting on doing stuff. Like it really emphatically has. It's not even a question. And I'd like to, in my own small way, it's like almost you want these artists to know, you guys, you don't just influence other musicians. There's creative people that go away and you become almost like your ideology behind what you do can inspire, one's approach to how they fight for their space and fight for their career.
Yeah.
That's what this stuff's done.
Yeah, I think there's a similar spirit to the expression you're talking about. Like there's certain people who make music and certain people who make comedy and certain people who write books and whatever they do. It is weirdly coming from the same spirit of empowerment and trying to do something interesting and good and unique, something that hasn't been done before. And I feel like you're in that realm, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Lee. You're welcome. So
wait, am I feeling a rhythm that you're winding this up, or did you want to talk more?
Well, no.
I'm trying to gauge your rhythm.
I thought I was winding things down a little bit, yeah.
I felt that it was a winding down, like,
is that
soliloquy
okay?
you were giving them. No, it's absolutely fine. I was thinking, okay, yeah, I was thinking, yeah, this is the wind down soliloquy. I just wanted to know if I was correct, and I was.
You're an astute observer of human behavior and the way people behave generally. Yeah, I think you're on to me a little bit. You've called me out. I hope that's okay. I'm just conscious of my.
And the Frogs as well. They were a big influence.
Oh, the Frogs? The band,
just
the
chuck
Frogs.
that in there.
Okay.
Yeah, just chuck that in there, and then we can move on.
You and I can always talk again the next time you've got something out there. This doesn't have to be the end of our conversation. I hope you enjoyed it. Like, I mean, I feel like it's a nice thing we have here, and I think I'd like to pursue it again. But in the interest of, okay, here's the thing, Lee. When I do these interviews, my family is sequestered. They try to give me some space, and I feel bad. As we're speaking, it's a school day. It's a work day. I'm just trying to be courteous to them. It's
miserable for them.
Yeah, well, I just want them to be able to make as much noise as they want.
Let them be free. Let them be
free, absolutely.
A new day of opportunity.
Before we go, and I know that it's coming out, what is your role in Borat 2 exactly? What did you do this time?
I'm a credited screenwriter, which means I wrote it with the other screenwriters, and I'm also a credited associate producer, which means I sort of had a role in some of the more nuts and bolts production of it, as well as sort of production input in terms of creative choices.
Okay.
So that was my role in it.
Okay. So we'll all get a sense of it when it comes out. You feel like it's a necessary thing for us to be experiencing, particularly Americans? I'm not American. You're not American. But do you think Americans, is this for Americans at the moment?
I hope it's for everyone who enjoys it. I'll be honest with you. And again, this sounds really callous and it's not a comment on the film. I can't be bothered to watch it.
Oh, you haven't? Okay.
No, I haven't watched it, and I probably won't, literally because I don't really watch the stuff I make. And again, honestly, this sounds like really negative, but I swear it's positive. I literally just work. I think the success, so I think to be successful, if you're making a living in whatever capacity means you're a success story.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like for me, making a living, that is my success. And then I can enjoy the things I actually enjoy in life, which are things I like more than show business.
Right.
So,
okay.
And so I don't really dwell on the stuff I've done or watch it, but let me know if it's good. And it's enjoyable.
I'll let you know for sure. So Lee, if people want to learn more about you and your comedy, where would you want to send them? On Twitter, or, as I said, you and I have a Twitter connection. I know you have a nice website with lots of your stuff. Where would you want to send them?
I guess follow me on Twitter. It's Lee Kern, LEEKERN 13. That's the numerical number 13. So Lee Kern 13. Follow me there, and then I've got a website with their stuff up there. If you want to see a bit, it's got leekern.org. And I've got Vimeo somewhere. I probably should put a link to there, but my Vimeo is probably the best place to see loads and loads of different bits and pieces I've made. You can have a browse around there.
Yeah,
And,
you've got a bunch of videos up on your website under videos, I think, and they're all Vimeo clips, I believe. So yeah, people can check. Am I telling you something about your website you didn't even know?
No, I was actually right the other day. I was thinking, like, what kind of sick psychopath actually updates their website? You know, like what kind of deranged lunatic goes on and updates their website with information about themselves. You've got to be a fucking like head case to do that.
Okay, listen to me here. I have to update my site.
You've got to, because you've got a product that's coming out
every week,
regularity.
Every couple of days, I got to do something to it. It's true, but you're right. I have a section of like writing. And I've never updated it. I always forget to put the articles that I've written up.
You'd be insane if you did that.
I know.
Literally, I'd want people keeping an eye on you. You've got to be a serial killer or something if you actually did that. What kind of cold-blooded bastard would update sort of bits of their resume on their website? You've got to be stone cold dark to do that.
All right. I appreciate that. I appreciate you saying that. All right. Well, we'll tell people nonetheless. People should go to your website because there's lots of good stuff there, and follow you on Twitter. And Lee, this was really fun, and I appreciate you reaching out to me over the years. And I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope we talk again soon. And best of luck with everything.
Let's stay in touch, all right? And be well. Hello to all your listeners. God bless you all. Have a lovely, lovely pandemic.
Very special thanks to Lee Kern for being on the 574th episode of Creative Control, which is part of the Entertainment One podcast network and is available on, well, everywhere you get your podcasts. Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, all the things, everything. It's on all of the podcast things. But if you can't find an episode that you've heard about and you're looking for it, or if you want to learn more about me, and sign up for my regularly scheduled newsletter. It might be about monthly. I think it's going to be a monthly newsletter now. I just did one. I haven't done one in a while. I don't see why I would do it more than monthly. You don't need to hear from me this much. I'm already putting out all these episodes. What more do you want from me? Anyway, if you want to learn about all these things, please visit vishkhanna.com. You can like Creative Control on Facebook, follow the show on Twitter at vishcreative, or follow me directly at vishkhanna. Also, please visit patreon.com/creative control to make a flexible monthly donation to keep this podcast going. If you pledge $6 or more a month, you get access to exclusive content, and I pull stuff from my audio archives of interviews I've done in the past, and then I put them up. And so I'm not going to do that this month because there's so many episodes of the regular show that I don't... Do you really want... I guess I'm supposed to do it. I might do it. I have my eye on a Harmony Korine thing I did some years ago that it became kind of infamous. Anyway, I might put that up. But anyway, thank you for your support. If you want to support the show, it doesn't have to be $6. It could be less than that. It could be more than that. If you want to support the show and make sure it keeps going, patreon.com/creative control. Thanks again to live@masseyhall.com, where you can watch beautifully captured concerts by great Canadian artists. Also, for their in-kind support, Pizza Trocadero, The Bookshelf, and Planet Bean Coffee in Guelph, and Granddad's Donuts in Hamilton. Thanks also to my dear friend and musical mastermind, Jim Guthrie. He lets me use some music on the show, and his music is all great. He's very prolific as well. You can learn more about Jim at jimguthrie.org. Hey, I bet if you're a friend of Lee's and you're into filmmaking, Jim scores movies. I don't know that he's looking for work. He's usually way too busy, but still, jimguthrie.org. He does it all. He scores things. He's great. And finally, thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode with Lee. And if you liked what you heard, there's obviously 573 episodes in the back catalog that you could go check out. And also, please subscribe to the podcast or follow it, whatever your platform asks you to do. Keep tabs on it. That helps. Spread the word about it somehow, algorithms and whatnot. So please consider doing that. And also, you'll just be in touch. You'll know what's going on the show. Okay, I think I've said enough. I will talk to you extremely soon. There's another episode coming. Before you know it, there's going to be another one of these. I hope you enjoy that one too. Bye for now.